This isn't about Scandinavia being a socialist paradise. It's not about free healthcare or 5-week vacations. This is about a 28-year-old software engineer in Oslo who takes home less money than his American counterpart in Austin, Texas. And somehow he's wealthier. Not on paper. In reality. Because I spent 3 years believing that Norway's tax system was economic suicide. That confiscating 40, 50, even 53% of someone's paycheck was theft dressed up as compassion. Then I looked at my own bank account. I'm an American. I paid 24% federal income tax last year. Add state, add healthcare premiums, add student loans that function like a second mortgage. And I realized I was taxed more than my Norwegian friend. I just never got a receipt. And if that just made you pause and question everything you thought you knew about taxes, you're in the right place. This video is going to challenge some deeply held beliefs. About money. About freedom. About what high taxes actually means. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Because we're about to go deep into the numbers that nobody talks about. And smash the like button if you want YouTube to show this to more people who need to see it. Alright, let's get into this. Meet Kristine. She's 34. Works as a teacher in Bergen, Norway's second largest city. Makes about $58,000 a year. Her effective tax rate? 31%. That sounds brutal if you're American. You hear 31% tax rate and think, this woman is being robbed. But let's walk through her actual month. Not the talking points. The real numbers. Her paycheck after taxes. Around $3,350. Now here's where it gets interesting. No health insurance premium. Gone. She doesn't pay it. Not $200 a month. Not $500. Zero. No student loans. She finished her master's degree in education. 5 years of university. Total cost? 0 kroner. $0. The Norwegian government paid for it. Her daughter Emma is 4 years old. Goes to public daycare, full-time. Kristine pays $200 a month. In Seattle, where I used to live, that same full-time daycare would cost her $2,100. In Manhattan? Try $3,000. She gets sick in March. Pneumonia. Bad enough that she needs to be hospitalized for 3 days. Antibiotics, chest x-rays, follow-up appointments with a pulmonologist. Her out-of-pocket cost? $30. That's the annual copay cap in Norway. After you hit it, everything else is free. In June, she takes 4 weeks of paid vacation. Not because she's senior. Not because she negotiated hard. It's mandatory. Her employer legally cannot stop her. And she's already planning a 5th week for Christmas because Norway guarantees 25 days minimum. She contributes 2% of her salary to a pension. Her employer matches with 5%. That's automatic. At the end of the year, Kristine has saved $8,000. Not because she makes more than an American teacher. She doesn't. The average American teacher makes about $66,000. But because her taxes already bought the things Americans pay for after taxes. She's not wealthier on her paycheck. She's wealthier in her checking account. She's wealthier in her sleep. Zoom out. Kristine isn't lucky. She's not an outlier. She's average. Here's the data that completely broke my brain when I first saw it. The OECD tracks something called the tax wedge. It's the total amount of income that gets eaten by taxes and mandatory costs for a typical worker. In Norway, a single worker with no kids has a tax wedge of about 36%. In the United States, 29%. That sounds like we win, right? Lower taxes, more freedom, USA. USA. Wrong. Because that 29% doesn't include the $5,000 to $8,000 the average American pays for health insurance premiums. It doesn't include the $400 to $600 average monthly student loan payment. It doesn't include the $1,200 to $1,500 per month for childcare if you have a kid. These aren't optional expenses. You need healthcare. You need childcare if you work. You have to pay your student loans or your credit gets destroyed. When you add those mandatory costs in, the things Norwegians get automatically through their tax system, The real American tax wedge jumps to somewhere between 45% and 52%, depending on your situation. We pay more. We just pay it to Anthem, Blue Cross, Cigna, Sallie Mae, Nelnet, and Bright Horizons Daycare instead of the IRS. We've privatized our tax system, but we're still paying it. Second stat that shocked me. The median Norwegian household has about $60,000 in net wealth. The median American household, $121,000. So we're winning, right? Not so fast. That American number is inflated by home equity. And here's the problem. You can't spend home equity unless you sell your house or take out a loan against it. Liquid savings. The money you can actually access in an emergency without selling your assets. Median Norwegian, $18,000. Median American, $5,300. Read that again. The typical Norwegian has more than 3 times the emergency savings of the typical American, despite paying higher taxes. Third stat. 44% of Americans say they couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency expense without going into debt. In Norway, that number is 11%. Norway taxes more. Americans are broker. And here's the kicker. Let's talk about actual tax rates for middle-class people. I'm going to use a real example. Someone making $75,000 a year. Married. 1 kid. In the U.S. Federal income tax, approximately $6,200. State income tax, average approximately $2,500. Social Security plus Medicare, approximately $5,700. Health insurance premiums, family plan, approximately $7,800. Student loan payments, average approximately $4,800. Childcare, if both parents work, approximately $12,000. Total, $39,000. That's 52% of gross income gone before you buy groceries. In Norway, same scenario. Income tax, combined approximately $23,000. Mandatory pension contribution, approximately $1,500. Total, $24,500. That's 33% of gross income. But they get healthcare, education, childcare subsidies, and a year of parental leave included. The math doesn't lie. Let me introduce you to someone else. His name is Marcus. He's American. Lives outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Works in IT. Makes $76,000 a year. Marcus pays about 22% in federal and state income taxes. Sounds good. But his health insurance, through his employer? $450 a month for a family plan. That's $5,400 a year. And he has a $6,000 deductible before insurance actually kicks in. Last year, his wife had a complicated pregnancy. Emergency C-section. 4 days in the hospital. The bill after insurance. $8,300 out of pocket. He's still paying it off. His daughter is 3. Daycare costs $1,100 a month. That's $13,200 a year. He has $34,000 in student loans. Monthly payment, $380. He gets 2 weeks of vacation. Technically. But his company has a culture where taking more than a week at a time is frowned upon. He hasn't taken a full 2-week vacation in 4 years. At the end of the year, Marcus has saved $1,200. 1 unexpected car repair, 1 medical emergency, 1 layoff, and he's in credit card debt. Marcus and Kristine make almost the same amount of money, but they live in different financial realities. Not because one works harder, because one system is designed to distribute risk across everyone, and the other system forces you to absorb it yourself. Okay, pause. Because if you're American, especially if you lean politically conservative or libertarian, you're thinking, this guy's selling Norwegian Kool-Aid. There's no way it's this good. You're right to be skeptical. So let's talk about what genuinely sucks in Norway. Because there are real trade-offs, and if I don't mention them, you shouldn't trust anything else I've said. Trade-off number 1. You cannot get rich quick. If you're a top-tier software engineer at Google, Meta, or Amazon in Silicon Valley, you can make $300,000 to $500,000 a year in total compensation. In Norway, that same role at a top company pays maybe $110,000 to $130,000. And you're taxed heavily on anything above $90,000. The Norwegian tax system is designed to flatten the top. If you make $200,000, your marginal tax rate can hit 53%. If you have significant wealth, there's a wealth tax of 1.1% annually on net worth above $170,000. That means if you own a house worth $600,000 and have $200,000 in investments, you're paying a tax just for having that wealth every year. If you're ambitious, if you want to build a startup and become a billionaire by 40, Norway will actively fight you. The system is not built for outliers. It's built for the average. Trade-off number 2. Consumer goods are absurdly expensive. A beer at a bar in Oslo? $12 to $15. A cocktail? $20. A used Toyota Corolla with 60,000 miles? $35,000. A pound of ground beef? $12. Electronics, clothes, anything imported. You're paying 25% VAT on top of already inflated prices. Norway has one of the highest costs of living in the world. That $58,000 salary goes further than the American equivalent, yes, but it doesn't feel like it when you're paying $9 for a bag of Doritos. Eating out is a luxury. Drinking is a luxury. Norwegians joke that they travel to Sweden just to buy cheaper groceries. Trade-off number 3. The system is not free. It's prepaid. And you don't get to choose. You don't choose your healthcare provider the way Americans do. You're assigned to a local GP. If you want to switch, you can, but there's a process. You don't choose your child's public school unless you physically move to a different district. Private schools exist, but they're rare and expensive. The government decides where the money goes. If you don't like the public hospital in your city, tough. You can pay out of pocket to go private, but you're paying twice, once in taxes, once in cash. Americans value choice. The Norwegian system limits it in exchange for universal access. Trade-off number 4. Wait times for non-emergency care can be long. Need a hip replacement? You might wait 3 to 6 months unless it's urgent. Specialist appointments can take weeks. Emergency care is fast. Chronic or elective care. You're in line. In the U.S., if you have good insurance and money, you can often get that hip replacement in 2 weeks. Speed is a feature of the American system, if you can afford it. Trade-off number 5. This system only works because Norway is tiny and rich. Norway has 5.5 million people. That's the population of Colorado. And they have a $1.7 trillion sovereign wealth fund built on oil and gas revenue. The government makes more money from investments than from taxing its citizens. Norway isn't replicable. You can't just do Norway in a country of 340 million people with no trillion-dollar oil fund and 50 different state governments that can't agree on anything. The political trust required to make this work? Americans haven't had that since the 1950s, if ever. So I'm not here to say America should become Norway. That's not realistic. That's not even possible. So why are we talking about this? Because this isn't about copying Norway. It's about asking the right question. America already has a high tax system. We just outsourced it to private companies and called it freedom. You pay Aetna instead of the Treasury. You pay Navient instead of the Department of Education. You pay Bright Horizons instead of a public childcare system. The question isn't, should we tax more or less? The question is, what are we optimizing for? Norway optimized for security, for stability, for the peace of mind that if you get sick, have a kid, lose your job, or get old, you won't lose your dignity. The Norwegian philosophy is nobody should fall through the cracks. America optimized for optionality, for opportunity, for the chance, however slim, that you could be the one who makes it, who goes from middle class to multimillionaire. The American philosophy is nobody should be held back by the collective. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Both of those are valid values. If you're 23 years old, single, healthy, childless, and on fire with ambition, the American system might give you more rocket fuel. You keep more of your paycheck. you take bigger risks. If you win big. If you're 38 with 2 kids, aging parents, a mortgage, and a chronic health condition, the Norwegian system might let you sleep at night. You know that no matter what happens, the floor won't collapse under you. But here's what we don't get to do anymore. Pretend the American system is low tax or cheap. It's not. It's just itemized differently. We've been sold this narrative that freedom means keeping more of your paycheck. But what's the point of keeping an extra $500 a month if you're one medical emergency away from bankruptcy? Let me tell you what changed my mind. I used to think, I don't want the government taking my money. I can spend it better than they can. And you know what? I probably can spend my money more efficiently than a bureaucrat in Washington. But here's the thing I missed. I can't negotiate with a hospital. I can't bulk buy healthcare. I can't spread my personal risk across millions of people. Some things require collective action. Not because collectivism is morally superior, but because the math only works when everyone's in the pool. Insurance is socialism. It always has been. We just don't call it that when a corporation runs it. Here's the real question. What does freedom actually mean? Is it freedom to keep 70% of your paycheck, but spend 30% on healthcare, student loans, and childcare? Or is it freedom to keep 60% of your paycheck and know that your kids' education, your health, and your retirement are already handled? One system prioritizes cash in hand. The other prioritizes peace of mind. Neither is objectively correct. But we should at least be honest about the trade-offs. And if this video has made you rethink even one assumption you had about taxes, freedom, or how economic systems actually work, I need you to do 2 things right now. 1. Subscribe to this channel. Because I'm going to keep making videos that challenge the narratives we've been sold about America versus the rest of the world. And I promise, I'll never sell you a utopia. Just data, stories, and honest trade-offs. 2. Share this video. Send it to that one friend who always argues with you about politics. Post it in your family group chat. Because this conversation matters, and most people have never seen these numbers laid out side by side. Hit that like button so YouTube knows this video is worth showing to more people. And drop a comment telling me, would you trade a bigger paycheck for guaranteed security? Or would you rather keep the cash and take the risk? I'm reading every single comment. Let's have a real conversation about this. So here's where I land after 3 years of researching this. I don't think America should become Norway, but I do think Americans deserve to know what they're actually paying for. Because right now, we're paying Norwegian-level taxes. We're just getting American-level services. And that's not a left or right issue. That's a math issue. The real divide isn't between socialism and capitalism. It's between people who can afford to absorb risk and people who can't. If you're wealthy, the American system is fantastic. You keep more of your money. You get concierge doctors. You send your kids to private school. You retire early. If you're middle class, you're in no man's land. You make too much to get help, but not enough to feel secure. And if you're poor, you're in a system that punishes you for being born into the wrong zip code. Norway didn't solve inequality, but they did decide that everyone deserves a baseline of dignity. America decided that dignity is something you earn. Neither philosophy is evil. But only one of them lets a teacher like Kristine save $8,000 a year, while a teacher like Marcus goes into debt because his wife had a complicated pregnancy. So here's my final question for you. Forget the politics. Forget the labels. Forget what you've been told to believe. If you could design your own tax system from scratch, if you were behind the veil of ignorance and didn't know whether you'd be born rich or poor, healthy or sick, lucky or unlucky, what would you want that system to guarantee? Would you trade a higher paycheck now for guaranteed security later? Or would you take the risk, keep the cash, and bet on yourself? Because that's the real choice. Not socialism versus capitalism. But what do you actually need to feel free? Drop your answer in the comments. Because I'm genuinely curious. And I might still be wrong about everything.